Hello everyone, my name is Hamza and today I'm going to tell you how you can build effective agents with the Dnotifier. Welcome to the official developer series that will guide you how you can design, build and deploy production ready AI agents. Let's get started. Workflows versus agents. These are the two main terms that are being utilized in the AI development industry too often. What workflow is? Workflow means predefined sequence of steps. The execution path is known beforehand. AI participates inside the workflow, which means the workflow controls the process. That is workflow. So, whenever you are doing something while you're creating AI applications or integrating AI agents into the existing applications, so you have to identify that what is the difference between workflow and agent. Does that integration actually requires a workflow or an agent? So these are the two main divisions when we are trying to do any AI transformations in the uh, in the given use case. So when it comes to the agent decides what to do next. Agent has a capacity to call MCP tools, query knowledge base databases, or maybe communicate with other sub agents, which means the control flow is dynamic over here, which means that agent has the capacity to either perform an action and knowing the intent of that request. So agent has that capacity, which means AI determines the path during the execution, which means at the runtime, agent identifies what to do. Like either it has to call the database, or maybe let's say read data from an API call and then insert something into the database. So that is something an agent can do by itself, which means agent can decide what to do. However, when it comes to the workflow, so workflow is part of your system, your logic, which means the output and the steps are defined. So it's not something that will happen, something that you have not decided and it did it by itself. So that's the difference between workflow and the agent. So let's get into it about how we can create workflows. So that's our first building block about how we can create workflows. So there are different techniques that we can use to build workflows. The one is prompt chaining, which means instead of having one prompt inside the workflow, we can have multiple prompts, and each prompt could be a single step, an iteration. That means, for example, let's say in your workflow, the very first step would be identifying the intent of that user message. Then the second would be having a guardrail, and then maybe after that it could be, let's say, doing a specific step, and then after that it could be your defined predefined logic, and then maybe another. So that what we are saying is a prompt chaining technique, where we have multiple prompts and each prompt does the specific part. In this way the entire workflow is defined. So that is one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is parallelization. There could be a possibility where all these sequential steps could be done in parallel as well. So inside the workflow, we can also go for parallelization, which means concurrent execution for speed. So it gives you more speed, the same technique, but it gives you more speed. If speed is the factor in your use case, then definitely parallelization is the way to move forward. Then there is another one, which is routing, which I just mentioned before, dynamic path selection for flexibility. Let's say, for example, over here, a user message comes in, then identifying the intent of that user message, you can route that to, let's say, workflow 1 or maybe workflow 2, right? So in this way, that routing helps to identify what to do next. Like, so, or in most production systems, mix of all three are really common to deliver the production ready agents, because sometimes you have to go for the sequential prompt chaining, sometimes you have to increase the speed, right? You have to go for the parallelization, and eventually to understand, like, for example, let's say for a support agent, right? So you have to identify either this is the technical bug, or it's the sales department you have to route, right? So that query. So in this way, that routing techniques helps you to diverge divert that specific message or a query to the specific workflow, sales workflow, technical workflow, marketing workflow, something like this. Let's get into more detail that how we can achieve this using the notifier. Now, pattern one is prompt chaining, which we just discussed, and I'll just get through it over here. That the input topic, which means whatever the input we get, then we can have a generate draft, then we can actually improve the draft, and then we have the finalized draft. So that's the process. So in this use case, blog writing is an example over here, where one step handles content creation, another improves clarity, and the third optimizes for SEO. So these are the three sequential steps. So depending on your use case, we can have multiple, maybe we could have 10 steps, 20 steps, right? So to achieve these desired output. So that is really easy and possible through prompt chaining techniques. So let's get into the code and see how we can achieve it with the notifier. I have my cursor enabled over here. So what I did is over here is I defined the agent. So I installed the notifier SDK. Once that is done, I can actually define the agent using the notifier.define agent. I just provided the name to it, and then this is the function that the notifier offered inside the SDK. That it's an async run, and that's the context. So whenever you have to read the input from that context, you can simply go for ctx.input, and you will get all the context provided by you at any stage. So you can get that from ctx.input. Once that is done, this is the internal logics that with from that object you're getting all these information. So that is something whatever you have passed, so you can get it. Then over here, that's the main function ctx.sendAI. So which means now you are actually calling AI LLM model providers, and over here you're actually sending the message. What's the role, the content, the role of the user, and the content. So that's what you are sending to this AI. For more details, this how you can use this, it's available in the official website as well. You can go there. And then save history, we don't want to save history. It's more of like a history that you can reuse it at later stage. And once that is done, so it's an await, which means an HTTP based. So as soon as you get the AI response, then this is the define function that I did just to extract the content of what I need, and then I pass that content as the state again as a draft. So that is one agent. Similarly, I have another agent, which is this agent is basically the content creator agent. The other one is clarity editor agent. If I just get into it over here as well, we can see in the same way I'm getting the input of the content and the draft state, because it's a sequential step. So if you can see over here, I actually pass that into the draft object over here, and I can get it from here. And again, this is the internal logic of that agent. And then this agent, what it does is the role is it provides more clarity to that blog. And then same goes for, I don't want to save history of this one, and then I'm extracting the content and passing it again as a refined. Over there it was, my category was draft, state.draft object. Now I'm passing, you can create any object as you want inside the state, so these are custom. Then I have a third agent over here, which is the SEO optimizer agent. So the same technique, state, input, content, I'm getting all those things over here, passing that to send AI function. Once that is done, I'll get the response here. Once the response is here, similarly I'm extracting the content, eventually passing and returning that. So over here, if I see, it has more state, and eventually state.final has the main content, right? And this agent is returning. Now once all three agents have been created, what I'm going to do is over here I'm actually creating a workflow, the notify.work with workflow object. I'm passing the name of that workflow, which is blog writer, article writer. In the description I'm writing it down what's there, observability equals to true, so that I can actually see how my workflow is working, what's the output of each agent, and I can see that I can debug that from the notifier portal, from the workflow graph, and then what's the entry point of my workflow, right? So this is the function that I'm actually connecting with, and over here I'm actually registering my agents. So So that's the name of my agent, and what function I'm actually passing to, right? So the functions I showed you above, I'm passing those functions over here in register agents, and that's my entry point for the workflow. So I'll get into it and explain you what it does. You can see whatever the input I'm getting, I'm actually passing that right over here, and then actually I'm saying run agent. Once I have the result from that agent, I'm actually then simply passing that over here to the clarity agent, and then I'm actually passing that to the content optimizer agent. So which means as soon as you create the agents, then you don't have to do the logic again and again. You can simply use it by calling those agents inside the workflow, and that's the sequence I run. I can have a lot more logics over here inside my workflow if I want to, but I just want to keep it simple for now. So that's my workflow function. Now how can I call this? Eventually I have to, like, I have this workflow, I defined it, now I have to call this workflow function. So that's my normal JavaScript function over here. I have created an input so that I can actually pass that to my workflow, and over here I've actually uh, created my configuration for Dnotifier, because eventually I have to connect it with my Dnotifier. So I'm passing my app ID, secrets, any agent ID, workflow ID, or application ID, any unique ID, so that you can actually identify who called this agent, or it could be a user ID or anything. The transport, I wanted the HTTP, and then few callbacks that right now it's empty. Once it's connected, so I'll be able to see that it's connected, and then all I am saying is notify this object that I created dot run for a workflow, and which workflow I want to run. So that's the function of, that's the workflow I am passing over here, blog article workflow, right? This function that I defined over here after workflow. So I am passing that function over here. Where it is, okay, and the input are as a parameters to that workflow which I had created over here: topic, keywords, audience, tone, word count. In this way I created agents, and then I created workflow. Once I did that, then I actually connected with Dnotifier SDK over here in the third step, and in the fourth step I actually executed that workflow. So it's simple four-step process to actually achieve this using the Dnotifier. Once that is done, you can view, you get the observability, monitoring, traceability, and everything. Through this prompt chaining technique, you'll be able to get the results, and our inputs and outputs will be able to identify everything from the Dnotifier. So that is saying a simple tutorial from prompt chaining. Let's move towards the second part, which is parallelization, and then similarly we have routing. So these sections I'll cover in my next videos. So just to summarize over here from this prompt chaining technique, uh, it's a sequential refinement of outputs for high quality and deterministic results, which means you have multiple steps, and in each step you will improve the quality. So let's say in the same technique you could have maybe connected with a vector database, and you might have pulled something from there, and then you might have shared that input knowledge base to the LLM again. So from this prompt chaining technique you can achieve that. So once you have all the agents, now you can call these agents parallel in the workflow, so you don't have to redefine the agents again and again. In the coming tutorials I'll also demonstrate you how you can have one agent talking to another agent in real time, and one agent will wait for another agent. So as soon as one agent completes a task, it will ping the other agent that I have done the task, and then two other agents can work on it. So we'll get into those tutorials as well. But as of right now, we have covered how we can achieve prompt chaining from the Dnotifier. Let's wait for the new videos coming in that will cover the parallelization, routing, autonomous agents, how we can use the agent states across different agents, and agent communications between different agents. So we'll cover that in the coming videos. Hope you like the tutorial. So with the Dnotifier you can actually have the AI orchestration completely for unified control. You can have workflow graphs in the Dnotifier portal. You have agent communication and multi-model AI communication as well. Along with that, with the support of knowledge bases, so you don't have to set up your own vector databases or something support. The Dnotifier supports by default, which means you don't have to worry about deployment of the vector database. You can simply connect the Dnotifier SDK. The documentation is out there. We'll cover in the next video sections as well. I hope you must have enjoyed this tutorial and follow Dnotifier for more updates. Thank you.